Hey, this is Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite games that I love playing on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena is an online platform for playing games that is a combination of free, or you can pay a few dollars a month to get access to all the games on Board Game Arena. And I had not played it at all before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit, and I switched to virtual game nights, only virtual game nights for a while, and I really came to appreciate Board Game Arena because it's a platform designed around playing games with other players and playing the games exactly how they look on the tabletop. The interfaces are sometimes a little different, but it's very, very close to the tabletop experience. I've now continued to play, to host really virtual game nights every other night, and so I've continued to play a lot more games on Board Game Arena since an original list that I made 2 years ago about my favorite games on Board Game Arena. Also, Board Game Arena has added a lot of games to their platform since then, so I thought it might be a good idea to revisit my favorite games on Board Game Arena. In fact, since then, Board Game Arena has added full versions of Viticulture and Tapestry, so you can get those games, you can play those Stonemaier games on Board Game Arena now. And in addition to that, the first part of this list I want to mention are my favorite games in general that happen to be on Board Game Arena, and then my full top 10 today will be my favorite games that I'm happy to just play on Board Game Arena. That is, I'm not seeking to play those games on the tabletop. It's still real life, but not on the tabletop. So let me start out with the games that I love in general quite a bit, and they happen to be on Board Game Arena. Those games are Incan Gold, Terra Mystica, Space Base, Seven Wonders Duel, Downforce, A Feast for Odin, Agricola, Dice Forge, Castles of Burgundy, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Wizard, The Crew, Tokaido, Tzolk'in, Stone Age, and the Isle of Cats. Among that list, it varies whether or not I would rather play on Board Game Arena or play in person, but in general, I think I would rather play those games in person, but I do appreciate the option to play them on Board Game Arena at virtual game nights. So, let's get to the top 10 of, these are my top 10 favorite games that I'm happy to just play on Board Game Arena. I'm not pursuing owning them, but I am very happy to play them on Board Game Arena. And I almost sometimes choose these over the games that I like even more in real life because I know I'll play the real life games on the tabletop, whereas these I pretty much only play on Board Game Arena. And number 10 is 6 Nimmt. 6 Nimmt is a game where each player has a random array of cards in hand, numbered from 1 to, I believe, 100, maybe a little bit over 100. And on your turn, or their simultaneous turns, you are going to pick a card from hand and reveal it, and then place it down in numerical order in a couple different card rows. It's a chaotic game. You don't really know what your opponents are going to play, and depending on the number of opponents, you don't know whether or not you are going. The card that you play is going to. You don't even know even exactly which row it's going to go in, or if it's going to get pushed off the end of the row, which means that you have to take an entire row of cards, or take that entire row that it got pushed off of when you complete a row. But it is just chaotic fun, and I really enjoy playing this game on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena does a good job of organizing the cards and telling you which order they come out with, and it doesn't do it exactly simultaneously. It kind of does it one by one, and sometimes it lets you if you have a choice, it lets you choose. There are a few instances in the game where you have a choice, but a lot of it is just kind of automated. Once you choose the card, a lot of what proceeds after that is automated, and Board Game Arena makes that automation really easy. Yeah, 6 Nimmt. It's a lot of fun to play, especially if you have a higher player count. I really enjoy playing it on Board Game Arena. So 6 Nimmt is at number 10. At number 9 is Draftosaurus, and I do miss a little bit about playing Draftosaurus in person because it is a meeple drafting game, and I'm sure in person that the meeples look great and it feels great to pass them to player to player. But as a filler game, it works wonderfully on Board Game Arena. It's a game where you are passing these dinosaur meeples around the table, and you're gonna whenever you have a handful of them, again it's another simultaneous game. You're gonna pick one of those cards, or one of those dinosaurs, and you are going to put it somewhere in your little dinosaur park, your little Jurassic Park, essentially. And there are a bunch of little set collection mini games in Draftosaurus. So there are some little pins where you want like all the same dinosaur, or every other dinosaur should be different or should be the same, things like that. A bunch of different little set collection mini games in Draftosaurus, and it just ends up being a really, really fun filler game. It doesn't take long, but you get the satisfying feel of doing the set collection, and it does give you a little reason to pay attention to the other players and what they're building in their dinosaur parks, as well as, which makes it relevant for the drafting, because you're sending them some dinosaur tokens that you may or may not want them to have, or that you may or may not want to have. I would say I enjoy Draftosaurus the most at slightly lower player counts because it means that your original hand of dinosaur meeples might actually come back around to you. So you might be hoping for one to actually get back to you. But I enjoy it at I believe it goes up to 4 or 5 players. But yeah, Draftosaurus, great little filler game on Board Game Arena that I really do enjoy. At number 8, we have Abandon All Artichokes. This is a really innovative deck building game where the entire goal of the game is to get rid of all of the artichokes that you have. So you're trying to draw a hand at end of turn, draw a 5-card hand at end of turn that has no artichokes in it. And your deck starts off full of artichokes. And that's the game. The game is built around like trashing cards. So whereas a lot of deck building games have a little bit of trashing in the game, this game is built around that concept where you're trying to get these artichokes out of your deck and filling your deck with better cards that make it easier to get those artichokes out of your deck. Really, really clever concept. It takes around, I would say, 20 to 30 minutes to play, whether that's in person or on Board Game Arena. And I really, really enjoy this twist on deck building in Abandon All Artichokes. That's at number 8. At number 7, we have Quetzal. Quetzal is another game that probably would be fun to play in person because it involves actually rolling meeples. So at the beginning of your turn, you kind of toss your meeples on the table. At the beginning of every round, you toss some meeples, and depending on where they land, like standing or on a certain side, that determines where you can actually place those meeples, or especially where you can optimize place those meeples on the board. It's a worker placement game. It has some nice set collection to it and some of the cards that you're placing, but I really love that aspect of that where your meeples land during that roll at the beginning of your turn determines the best places and the various places where you are allowed to place them on the board. Really clever twist on worker placement in Quetzal. That's number 7. At number 6 is Can't Stop. And I don't think I have ever actually played Can't Stop on the tabletop. Maybe it's happened once, but I used to play on my phone or my iPad, and now I only play on Board Game Arena, and I really, really love this push your luck game. In Can't Stop, you are trying to race to the top of 3 different tracks. Those tracks are numbered 2 through 12, and on your turn, you are rolling, I gotta get this right, I believe it's either 3 or 4 dice. And you're trying to combo together those dice to determine which tracks you are actually going to move up a little bit. And as long as, and each turn you are only allowed to move up 3 different tracks. So even though you can have more than 3 different tracks in progress, you can only actively move up 3 different tracks on your turn. And so you bust and can't stop if you decide to continue to roll, but you cannot move up. The roll that ends up meaning that you can't move up on any of the 3 tracks that you decided to move up on this given turn. It's a really cool push your luck game that makes you feel like you're always in it. There's always a chance to roll a little bit further and get to the top of the track before somebody else. And wonderfully, for the tension of the game, when someone completes a track, that track is locked for all other players. No one else can advance on that track at all. So the game actually gets tighter and tighter as it continues. The tension escalates as the game continues. It's a really, really wonderful push your luck game. Can't Stop at number 6 for my favorite games to play on Board Game Arena. Number 5 is Conspiracy. Conspiracy is based roughly on the game Abyss, and it's in the same universe as Abyss. It's an incredible like science fiction fantasy underground universe, or underwater universe. And Conspiracy takes some of the mechanisms in Abyss and streamlines them and adds a spatial element to where you're placing the cards that you choose. And I would say I prefer Conspiracy to Abyss for sure, and I really, really enjoy playing Conspiracy on Board Game Arena. One of my favorite decision points in the game is that on your turn, you are gaining a card, and you're either gaining the face-up cards that are available, or you are drawing more cards from the deck and deciding how many cards you want to draw. And the nice little twist to this is, if you are choosing face-up cards, you're not necessarily even just choosing one card, you're choosing all cards of a color that are face-up. So if there's 1 yellow card, 2 red cards, and 3 purple cards, I could choose purple and take all the purple cards, all 3 purple cards. That ties into the decision point of drawing cards, because if I draw 3 cards from the top of the deck, I can choose 1, 2, or 3. If I draw 3 cards from the top of the deck, all of the cards that I draw, I'm only keeping 1. The rest are going into the open tableau of cards that are available. So if I choose 3 cards, I get to see more cards, but 2 of those cards are going into the tableau and potentially creating wonderful stacks of color-specific cards for the next player to take. It's a great little decision point. I really, really like it, and I might use that in one of my games someday because it's such a clever mechanism in Conspiracy. That is Conspiracy at number 5. And number 4 is Small Islands. This is one of my favorite tile placement games. It's kind of tile placement and map building. Where in Small Islands, you have a hand of tiles, and you are selecting one of those tiles in your hand and placing it on the board to build this tableau that all players are building, kind of Carcassonne style. And on this grid that you're building, sometimes you're completing islands, sometimes you're adding to islands, you're adding icons to islands. And the game is played in a round format, so you're not just going throughout the entire game and always just on your turn placing a tile. Usually that's what you're doing on your turn, but there are rounds to the game, and that's important because you're going to score in different ways throughout the game. Each round has a different scoring goal that you have that you're trying to accomplish. And I really I don't always love games with rounds, but I think it works really, really well here because you're able to focus on a very specific goal for the current round, and then that goal is over and done with, and so you then get to focus on a completely different goal. So every round of the game feels very different in terms of the tiles that you're trying to play and what you're trying to accomplish, and yet the previously placed tiles are still relevant because the entire map is relevant to you as you continue to play. It's also really beautiful. I really love the look of the game itself, and so it feels really satisfying to build this map together with the other players in Small Islands. That's number 4, Small Islands. Number 3 is Tranquility. Tranquility is a tight cooperative game where it's kind of in the style of The Mind, but with a spatial element. Again, it's a tile placement game. I believe there might be cards in real life. I'm not sure what the tabletop version looks like, but you have a hand of, we'll call them tiles, and you are placing a tile somewhere on a grid that has, I believe, 36 different slots where you can place tiles. But there are a total of maybe 80 tiles in the game, numbered 1 through 80. You are deciding where to place a tile, and the big catch here where you place a tile is if you place it directly adjacent to another tile. You look at the difference between the two numbers on those tiles. So if I place a 36 next to a 38, 38 minus 36 is 2. What that means is that I need to discard 2 of my tiles from hand. I lose 2 tiles. And so you're trying to create these strings of sequential tiles so that you only have to discard 1 tile. That's the timer for the game. One of the ways that you lose the game, or the main ways that you lose the game, is if you cannot play a tile on your turn. And one of the ways that can happen is if you don't have any tiles in hand. So you're trying to keep as many tiles in hand as possible, and by creating these sequential strings with other players, but you can't communicate with other players. And so another player might play a 38, and I might have a 36 in my hand, and I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty close to 38. Maybe I should play that right next to that tile, but maybe I should play it 1 space away so that a player with a 37 can put it right in between and only lose 1 tile. But I don't know if another player has the 37, or if they've discarded it from a previous play. Maybe they discarded it because they thought maybe they didn't need it. So there's this wonderful puzzle that you're solving together with other players with limited communication. I don't think I've ever won Tranquility, but every single game has come down to just a few different tiles. Yeah, it's a really, really tense, puzzly, kind of abstract, The Mind style cooperative game that I really, really enjoy, and I hope to win it someday. That's number 3 on this list. Tranquility also does have a sequel that I backed on Kickstarter, so I will have a tabletop version of one of the games in the Tranquility line. But Tranquility itself, I'll just continue to play on Board Game Arena. At number 2, we have Clans of Caledonia. Clans of Caledonia is a game that I once owned, and I think I underestimated it. I enjoyed it, and then I came back to it a few years later, I think, and realized that I really, really love Clans of Caledonia because it has the Terra Mystica feel of you're pulling stuff off your mat and putting it on the map itself to generate more income on your turn. The entire game is built around money. So you have a certain amount of money that you start each round with, and you can increase that amount by quite a bit based on your income. And all you're doing on your turn is spending money on one thing. You spend money to do one thing, and that is what you're doing on that turn. You're usually buying something. But I love, I don't know, there's a lot of mechanisms in Clans of Caledonia that I really, really enjoy. But I like the simplicity of that system, that action system. You're just spending money to buy something. And it's not action points, it's money that you're spending. And I love the income that you can get by deciding what to pull off your mat and put it onto the map. It's a really cool system. It also has a really great modular map system that inspired the modular map. That's Clans of Caledonia at number 2. The number one game that I love to play, and I will play this game in person. I do enjoy this game very much, but I love playing on Board Game Arena, and that is Russian Railroads. Russian Railroads is an engine-building worker placement game where you're placing workers to build your railroads, and not just build them, but also determine how far along each railroad you can actually activate the benefits from. So there's a kind of a two-piece puzzle going on there. Generally in Russian Railroads, when I play, I try to work on 2 different tracks, 2 out of the 4 tracks. And I get I love the order of operations in the game, the order in which you're placing workers, the order in which you're advancing different tracks to go just a little bit further to get a certain bonus on a certain track so that you can then go a little bit further somewhere else. And Board Game Arena does a great job of telling you what your potential income is for that turn and how many points you'll get, because it's one of these games that really ramps up. The first round you'll get very few points, and the last round you can get hundreds of points. And so Board Game Arena does a really good job of tracking how many points you are going to get. It shows you that. And then when it comes time to actually score each round, it does a good job of doing that points system for you, which can sometimes be a little bit cumbersome to keep track of in your head in real life. Still think it's worth playing the game on the tabletop, but I really, really enjoy the engine building aspect, the worker placement aspect, and the automated scoring aspect of Russian Railroads on Board Game Arena. That's it. Those are my top 10 games on Board Game Arena. Even just talking about this list, it gave me some ideas for a game that I'm working on right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk through these games with you. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. What are your favorite games to play on Board Game Arena? And whether they're games that you specifically want to only play on Board Game Arena, or you're happy to just play on Board Game Arena, or your favorite games in general that happen to be on Board Game Arena. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks.